We'll probably write an email about that. We'll go in on another topic. And of course, we'll award somebody, or we might award more than one somebody, with the Adult of the Week. But for right now, headlines, please. Did I say NBA free agency? I think yes, I did. And here, basically, how it's gone down. All right. So for those who probably need to follow, let me see. You have Kyrie Irving, who's returning to the Mavericks. You have Draymond Green, who's returning to the Warriors. You have Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton. They're returning to the Bucks. You have Kyle Kuzma, who's returning to the Wizards. And you have Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, along with D'Angelo Russell, returning to the Lakers. Now, you do have some free agents that went elsewhere, like Dante DiVincenzo, who went from the Warriors to the Knicks, Fred Van Fleet, who went from the Raptors to the Rockets. And then you have the two big names of free agents who are still out there, which is, well, I should say one free agent and one person who's requesting a trade, which would be James Harden, who, of course, right now is a 76er because he had to opt out to become a free agent because he currently is a 76er. And Damian Lillard, who now is currently a Blazer, but he's requested a trade because he wants to be out of Portland. Not because of Portland, but because, well, he knows that he is going to be on a sinking ship. And he should want to go from there because there isn't anything that's going to be benefiting him this, next, or the season after, or the season after, or the season after. The team is in rebuilding mode, and he should not see that. That simple, that plain, that cut and dried. From the hardwood to the gridiron, actually to the college gridiron, and the University of Florida, they want to make the swamp get a makeover. That's right. A significant overhaul is expected for the swamp, and they're thinking it's going to cost in the neighborhood of $400 million, and it's going to be a multi-generation solution for an aging and iconic stadium in the heart of Florida's campus. Now, the Getty has announced these plans earlier this week to hire an architect for the design of its revamped Florida Field, or Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, the first public step in a process that has been ruminating for years. The school will open a formal selection window later this month. Now, this shouldn't really be a surprise that Florida is doing this, considering that we have seen pictures of Alabama with Bryant-Denny Stadium, Death Valley and LSU, and, of course, the two-time defending national champion Georgia and Sanford Stadium, or Between the Hedges. Basically, right now, they are the three programs to me that mean the most, not just in the SEC country, but in all of college sports, not necessarily because of just national championships or national playoff appearances, but because these universities are getting a truckload of money being brought to their programs. So Florida, in keeping up with the Joneses or the Tide or the Tigers or the Bulldogs, they now feel as though they need to step up and revamp a field that's almost a century old. Smart for them to do. Hopefully they'll find the right architect to do so. Unfortunately for the Angels, they received a double whammy of injuries. We'll start first with Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher/designated hitter. He had to exit yesterday's game due to a blister, and he doesn't expect to pitch in the All-Star game. The right-handed Ohtani was pulled from the pitching mound at Petco Park in San Diego, in the bottom of the sixth, at the giving of back-to-back homers for the first time as an Angel. Now, he also has been dealing with a cracked fingernail on the same finger, which he's a right-handed thrower. And it's been an issue that has pushed his scheduled start by a day. He hasn't returned. He didn't return to the lineup even as a designated hitter, with the Angels calling on Joe Odell to pitch hit for him in that game when his spot came up in the top of the ninth inning. Well, For the Angels, news went from bad to worse. Ohtani injured, Mike Trout injured even further. The plug was pulled on the Trout Ohtani show, and it might only return for a limited engagement. Now, Trout suffered a fractured hamate bone in his left hand and was placed on the DL yesterday. The Los Angeles Angels also announced that Trout broke his hook bone on a swing Monday night against the Padres. An hamate fracture occurs fairly often among hitters, and it's little long-term structural damage, but the broken bone needs to be removed surgically, a process that will sideline Trout for at least July and possibly August. Now, for a team that is currently now only 7 games out of the AL West lead and 4 games off the pace of possibly having a playoff spot because they are 4 games behind the Astros and they're 7 games behind the Rangers, it looks like this team is not going to compete for anything, and they can't even deal both Ohtani or Trout before the trade deadline because both of them are damaged goods. So we won't see them in the All-Star game. The Angels can't profit from them in what they do on the field. They can't profit them if they try to deal them in a trade. Ooh, tough times ahead for them. So what does this mean for the All-Star game in Seattle next week? Well, it looks like along with these two, they have to replace Clayton Kershaw as well because he also suffered a big-time injury. Because of wrong shoulder, because of the sore shoulder. Forgot Clay Shaw's a left-hander. So next week in Seattle, the replacements are as follows. Replacing Mike Trout will be Kyle Tucker. Of course, he is hitting a career-high 295 that leads all the Astros roster. He's second on the team with the best 370 on-base percentage. And the 26-year-old outfielder also has 55 RBI, along with 13 homers and 89 hits. To replace Aaron Judge, who has a hurt foot, messed up his foot last month when they were playing in Los Angeles. Wander Franco is going to replace him. Now, he was a considerable snub. He leads the Rays at hits with 90, including 21 doubles, and as well as 26 stolen bases. He is hitting 283 with a 343 on-base percentage. Replacing Kershaw will be Dave Bednar. The 28-year-old reliever now is all-star bound with 16 saves and 1.44 ERA, striking out 37 and 31 in the third innings. Now, also replacing Yordan Alvarez, who's injured, is Julio Rodriguez. And he's the 24-year-old Mariner outfielder with 83 hits, 13 homers, and more than likely he will probably draw the loudest cheering of the night. Hopefully this will help the All-Star game. When you have big names that miss, more than likely, the energy will just simply sink. Staying on the diamond, and finally, there was a person who was 13, and unfortunately, he committed suicide on March the 6th. And it was unfortunate because his family said that he endured intense bullying at a middle school. And he had far too many of those silent moments, far too many moments filled with sad tears. And one of his dreams was to play for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, what makes this, I guess you could say, a sobering and touching moment in a, I guess you could say, horrible tragedy, is the father of that boy who committed suicide walked to the mound at Busch Stadium this past Sunday to throw out a ceremonial first pitch in honor of his 13-year-old late son, who lived and breathed the Cardinals. And when he walked out to the mound, it was a standing ovation that the Busch Stadium crowd gave him. His tears welled in his eyes, and then when he looked up into the stands, he saw 40,000 Cardinals fans rise to their feet in nothing but applause. Well, I will say to you, sir, I hope that you can heal as much as you can. I know that it's impossible to all the way heal because that is a tragedy that nobody can really lick all the wounds from. But know that your son may have received some sense of a mission accomplished by you being on a Busch Stadium hill, but we are with you from here unto eternity. God bless you, sir, and we are so sorry for your loss. And that concludes this week's headlines. A break, and when we come back, I think somebody needs a sobering reminder of how the media works. This is Cole Sportz with a Z. Be right back. And we'll visit the VIP zone when we return right after this.
You have to learn to live with yourself before you can make a commitment of yourself to someone else.
When you go to something that's already structured, like the church, I don't need to go in there thinking I'm the pastor. It's like already one set up, you know what I'm saying?
It just had everything, but I learned, you know what I'm saying? Everything I did, I learned from.
So we look forward to seeing you same time, same place. Know that we love you, God loves you more. Continue to stay safe, do the right thing, stay out of trouble.
Conversation that informs a community. Brothers of Legacy. Every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Quinn.
Moment of clarity. I haven't watched BET in years.
KP.
Drake needs to come back with another triple platinum album.
E. Digger.
And then you have Ray J. Like, I can't stand that River Cricket.
The Guru.
Okay, the level of crack she's smoking, I don't want it.
BS3 Network proudly presents the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast, where from card tips to hot topics to meep of the week, anything goes. Live every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Central. Welcome back, Cole Johnson, Cole Sportz, and man, etiquette when you get laid off or when you're in a company that's laying off people, you have to walk more carefully. But before I get to that, let's visit the most important part of this show, that is the VIP zone, where if a comment is good or witty enough on this episode, that comment will be a chapter on the air with this one. We'll start with the birthday man, Stuck in My Mind podcasts and mentality, and Bobby J. Wise El Jefe's own Wise El Jefe. He says, let's get this show going already. And he's saying this because he also is going to be on air 5 p.m. Eastern today with a special edition of Stuck in My Mind. And I feel for you, sir. Inside joke. Sig Dicky, he says, let's get ready to throw down. He says, don't forget that we are live with Cole Sportz with the Z. He goes on to say, my question is, who are the architects, the engineers, the contractors, the cost accountants who will be vying for that lucrative renovating the swamp? I think that they won't have an issue with that. But that's a really good question, Sick, who joins us all the way from Norway. Good looking out, brother. My snowman in the morning compadre. Brian Snow, a.k.a. Snowman, he says, dear Angels owner, you fired. Sick, he says, will this ever raise awareness of teen suicide and bullying? I hope it does. I hope it does, because, you know, no matter how far we advance, that is still an issue. And I think it's one that we have to still crack down and knuckle down on, no matter how old we are or how young we are. Victor Locke or V Locke 83 or Vicar Locke on another show. I can't remember the show. Says, hello to one and all in the VIP section. It's time to get classy with Cole Sportz. And he gives Wise a happy birthday wish, saying, how are you, Wise, now that you're another year wiser? I saw what you did there. Ryan McCarthy, and No Credentials Acquired fame. He says, it's classy, it's sassy, it's Cole Sportz with the Z. With apologies to West Indies. David 3000. How you doing? We also airing on there as well. He says, hello to you, sir. Hope everything is going well. And we hope everything is going well with all of you who are viewing this and all of you who are listening to this. We will visit the VIP zone 3 more times before this show is over. Now let us get to business. And ESPN, they are now in the maelstrom of talk news and talking head, I should say amateur talking head mouths all over the world. You know, they're thinking, well, why are they letting go of all of these talents? You know, it's unfair that this talent is going, but this talent is staying. And then we had a comment from Stephen A. Smith, which is prompting this. Email Stephen A. Smith. CC the general public. Subject of email. Come with the real body of email. Now I'm gonna break what you said on your own show, Stephen A little bit later. But for now, I'm going to address the general public, and this is how I'm going to address it and address all of you. Many of you have said that it's unfair what ESPN is doing. How dare they just lay out these many people? Well, let me give you a good insight as to what goes on in mainstream media, because I belong to a mainstream media company myself. This is what goes down. Every quarter, and when I mean by every quarter, I mean every March. We revisit all this every March, every June, every September, and every December. Every quarter, all of what a company does gets broken down to the finite of details, and then we all, as a whole conglomerate, get together and they say either we had a wonderful quarter or we had a horrible quarter. And if they say that we have a horrible quarter 1 too many times, and normally it's maybe 2, possibly 3 straight quarters that they can say that. If you get to the neighborhood of 3 bad quarters, the ivory tower will say to the talent below them. And I can say this with all confidence and honesty with you. Last December, I had many of my colleagues, many of my friends, many people that I worked with for years. They had to leave, and they were cut without explanation, without warning, without any preparation. One day, everything was fine. Everything was business as usual. Everything was normal. They went home. They did what they did when they went home. And then they came back the next day to be heard that we're giving you a pink slip. That isn't fair. That isn't right. And it sucks. And it sucked the life out of the people who remained like me. Now, what sucked was this was the 3rd time that we were undergoing this in a 6-month span, because we went through it in June, but it was a slight murmur with our department. Then we went through it again in September, which the murmur got a little larger, but it still didn't reverberate hard. Then we got to December, where it smacked everything in my department, all the way down to where we had 12 subunits in our department. On November 30th, it was 12. By December the 10th, It was one. And I was a part of that one unit that survived out of the 12 that got dissolved. And of course, since then, that 12th got dissolved, and we all moved to different places on the radar of the company in which I actually work for, which is in media, mainstream and national. What sucks about this is you know that you have to look at your back and your sides and in front of you and above you and below you, because you don't know if or when it is coming. So from that part of what Stephen A. Smith said is true. Again, I'll get to him in a minute. Well, I think what you all don't understand is, you all are saying, not all of you, but many of you are saying, well, it's unfair and that shouldn't happen. And how how could ESPN do this? And then others are saying, good, that person is gone. I'm glad that is happening. This is great. I couldn't stand that personality. Here's the problem with that. You can gloat all you want to say that a personality you can't stand is gone and that you actually are celebrating it. And I saw this. But if you were in that company and that was you, that without explanation had to go, how would you feel if you saw somebody celebrate your departure of a job? Not too good, would you? Well, then you have to gain perspective, because it can hit you in any situation, in any business. It does not matter who, what, when, where, or why. All that matters is how. And all that matters is if you make sense with the dollars for the company or not. And if you do at that time, you'll survive. If you don't, you'll go. And I have been on the other end as well. About 7 years ago, everything seemed to be on the up and up. The manager of my unit said everything is great. And actually, everything is going to be even better because we are going to buy out another company. Well, that was in the spring of that year. And this was 2016, actually. So the spring of 2016, when we were going to buy a company, turned into a dismal fall when our manager told us, well, we're not going to buy that company. And then that fall turned even more dismal because in December they said, well, that company that I said that we were going to buy, well, that company is going to buy us. So we found out that we weren't going to buy a company in November of 2016. We found that company was going to buy us in December 2016. And then we found out in January 2017 that our unit was going to be dissolved and that we had to be gone by St. Patrick's Day. Not good news, right? Very sobering. That is not what you want to hear, but that is something that happens in media all the time. If it doesn't make dollars, it won't make sense, and you're out the door. Which leads me to your door, Stephen A. Smith. Now, yes, you said the right things in terms of, yeah, you might be next. Yeah, more is coming. And of course, more is coming. More is coming because of platforms like this and others I can name. Brian Snow Show and Snowman in the Morning. Stuck in My Mind and Papa J and Wise. Fit Down Sports Show. I can go on. No Credentials Required. In or Out Sports Debate. I could go on and on with the listings of so many other independent names that are coming up with wonderful sports and non-sports entertainment that the alternative entertainment is having the populace turn to watch. Yes, the ones who want to actually enjoy the fact you have no longer have a job. Yes, they are finding alternative entertainment. You know why ESPN is finding you know why ESPN is having to do all these cuts, Mr. Smith? Is because your contract is one they have to afford. Yes, there are 3 contracts that they have to afford right now because they consider you to be the most important figure in ESPN. That would be you, sir, Mike Greenberg, and the oncoming Pat McAfee. Now, before you say it's all Pat McAfee's fault, no, it's not. Don't lay the blame at him. Don't even lay the blame at Stephen A. Smith. Don't even lay the blame at Mike Greenberg. They don't have that decision. I can tell you this from fact. They don't make that decision. It is decisions of people who are much higher in pay grade and much higher in stature and at ESPN than they are. And possibly they were possibly they were told by Disney itself. All right, you're going to have to actually ask a couple of people. Actually, maybe not a couple, maybe a couple of dozen. And we know the high profile names. You don't know the producers. You don't know the writers. You don't know the social media producers who all got cut too, because they also received the axe. Because this is the first time in recent memory that ESPN laid off people. No. And to you, Stephen A. Yeah, you could be next. Reason why you didn't have to worry about it is because you felt the need to simply chop people at the knees. Like Max Kellerman, who worked with you, but you decided that he wasn't working for you, and then you bragged about the fact you moved him because you felt as though it was bad for ratings and that you wanted to get your show back up. And you claimed that you're the smartest man in the room because you don't think that you are smart, but you act as though you are the king of it. Because when you look around, I'm seeing that you're the smartest person in your circle, which means you got to change your room. If not, ESPN is going to change it for you. And I don't think you're going to like how they're going to change it. So you might be right. You might be next, but you're going to probably be next in a different sitting, different situation, different standing. And I don't think it's going to be soon because they promote you as much as Disney promotes Mickey Mouse. So I don't think you have to worry about that anytime soon. But what you do have to worry about is forming your exit strategy now. And you may have to expedite that. And you may have to put more into your exit strategy. And I see you have your fourth show that's outside of First Take that you have put forth and planned for. Good. I hope it continues for you. Because if it doesn't, it's going to be tough sledding for you, because a lot of people are getting sick of you being the Barney of sports talk, and your act is getting stale. In fact, your act is getting more stale than bread being out for a year. So you might have to take that hit of you being one of the biggest reasons as to why ESPN had to lay off so many people. And yet you might be next if in the next quarter you lose them even more money than you already have. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm in the business. So I'm saying this being straight real with you. If you don't make money with them or for them in the next quarter or two, so this is July, by January of 2024, you might receive your walking papers. And I don't think you're going to crow that much like you did when you were happy to get Max Kellerman off of First Take. Nah. You might cry for something else, and you might cry a foul in another way. And if you do, you'd be all the way wrong in doing so. So take your medicine and keep going. Find a way to make more, and find a way to make money for yourself, and find a way to make more money for ESPN if you like being there. If not, you know what's going to happen. You know what the slip looks like, and you know how it's going to be because you've seen many of your colleagues walk, and for probably no explanation other than they just simply can't fiscally justify having you on. They'll be saying that about you if ESPN loses even more money. So sorry for you, bud. Cole Johnson, Cole Sportz, Cole Sportz with a Z at gmail.com. From the Vault is next. Following that, Dose of the Week.
The classiest sports show on the planet. Cole Sportz! key moment in sports history.
July the 5th, 1980. The green grass of Wimbledon awaited two of the greatest, brightest minds in tennis as they walked out on center court. On one side, the upcomer John McEnroe, still looking for his first Grand Slam. And on the other side of the net, Bjorn Borg, who was the king of the French Open and Wimbledon. And in fact, if he were to have won this final, it would have been his sixth in a row. But McEnroe came to want to thwart all of that. As the then 20-year-old McEnroe wanted to fight against the old establishment of the 25-year-old Borg, it was a test of wills in a rivalry that now saw its zenith with this particular final. Borg won the first set 6-1. I'm sorry, Borg lost the first set 6-1. He won the second set 7-5, and he won the third set 6-3 before having the ultimate of fourth sets. It went to a tiebreaker, and the tiebreaker went 34 points in 22 minutes before John McEnroe at 18-16 claimed the fourth set 7-6, but he fell 8-6 in the fifth set, which got Borg his sixth straight Wimbledon championship. Before then, he won his fifth straight French Open championship, and he was going to go and get his sixth straight in June of 1981. When they returned on the same court, 364 days later, John McEnroe beat Borg for his first Wimbledon title in a four-set victory. Beyond Borg, John McEnroe staged their most epic battle between one another as Bjorn Borg beats John McEnroe in 5 sets, 8-6 in the fifth, on this date in 1980.
From the vault, brought to you by Cole Sportz.
You have to learn to live with yourself before you can make a commitment of yourself to someone else.
When you go to something that's already structured, like the church, I don't need to go in there thinking I'm the pastor. It's like already one set up. You know what I'm saying?
It just had everything. But I learned, you know what I'm saying? Everything I did, I learned from.
So we look forward to seeing you same time, same place. Know that we love you, God loves you more. Continue to stay safe, do the right thing, stay out of trouble.
Conversation that informs a community. Brothers of Legacy. Every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. Discouragement, sorrow, distance. Your arguments cause damage to your family. The hurt leads to divorce. You feel like there is nowhere else to turn. But there is hope for you. That's where we come into play. There is an overcomer that lives inside of you. One ready to take on the world as you leap for joy, living in victory. You'll grow to love yourself and others. There's life after divorce, and you can claim it today. Get Over Divorce, where your new story begins here every Thursday on YouTube and Spreaker.
Welcome back to Cole Sportz. Cole Johnson here. And before we get to, I guess, the penultimate portion of the show. Let's go back to the VIP zone, the most important aspect of the show. And we're going to start with my man, Sig Diggy, who he says, I got money that says Cole is going to do Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo in this segment. Well, I think I just did. I agree with you. Wyatt says, look, I'm still learning, man, from the best. Well, I appreciate that, brother. I do. I hope your birthday is going well, man. Sig Diggy says, the email is brought to you by Houston's own Ray Ray's MMA Gym. Either y'all become champs or straight up trash. Rod West of Rod Uncensored. What's up, brother? I hope everything's good with you, man. I'm glad that you're on. Patriots fan extraordinaire, also Lakers fan as well. Good mind that's come up and coming, and I want to see what else he comes up with and unearths as he grows into his content creation. Six says, look, Stuck in My Mind podcast, you got two big brothers to learn from in Cole Sportz and Stone and Multimedia. Enjoy your day to the max. I appreciate that. Sick also says, job insecurities can bring out the worst in employees, plus it can cause instability and dysfunction in the workplace. You do not know how true that is, sir. You are 100% correct. He also says, look, Cole, that must have caused a lot of stress for you and your colleagues when the bad news hit. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And because of it, it permeates not just to your colleagues, but it also permeates to your homes because you feel this uncertainty. So yeah, definitely. Hall TV says, yo, what's up, man? What's up? Cole Sportz with a Z. He says, I'm happy to see you, Hall TV. Good to see you, brother. Ryan says, look, why do I foresee a podcast network with Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp being formed in the beginning of 2024? Funny that you mentioned that. Stephen A. has actually, I think he talked about it sometime this portion of the season last year, where he says he's trying to form a network himself. So you might be right. Sick asked Victor when his birthday was. He says Christmas Day. I somewhat feel for you, and I feel your pain because my mother's birthday actually is the day after Christmas, and she would lay down the law with gifts. Six says, look, were you a Christmas Day present? I bet you were gift wrapped. He also said one would be infamous for his outbursts, which is Stephen A. Smith, while the other would become an underwear mogul, which of course would be Shannon Sharp. Ugh. And Victor says both his parents said that he was wrapped up. Ryan mentioned, if my podcast network was already mentioned, I'm sorry, I was covering the phones at work today. Oh, yes, it was, sir. And I'm glad that it was mentioned. Six says, look, I have to apologize to CSTV and Roku for my use of profanity early today. We might have to apologize for actually having content that forces you to use those profane words, sir. And we will come back to the VIP zone the next two times, and we will do so after this segment, which is Dolt of the Week. Dolt of the Week is sponsored by nobody. The winner of this episode's Dolt of the Week is no. The winners of Dolt of the Week are Isaiah Rodgers, Rashon Berry, and Nicholas Petit-Frere. You, gentlemen, are Dolts of this week. Why? Because you didn't learn from the 5 that got suspended for gambling because you all wanted to gamble as NFL players and you all got the gate yourselves. Now, for those who are unaware of these names and their infraction, last week, the NFL suspended 3 players for at least a full season and another for 6 games in the latest batch of punishments for violations of the league's gambling policy. Now, the now former cornerback of the Colts, Isaiah Rodgers, and defensive end Rashad Berry, along with free agent defensive tackle Demetrius Taylor. All of them, and I forgot to add Demetrius Taylor, all of them are indefinitely suspended and must sit out at least the 2023 season before seeking reinstatement. Now, if you're thinking this is a harsh ruling, remember Calvin Ridley received the same ruling before all of this began. All three were found to have placed wagers on NFL games last year, as the league stated in a statement. Now, as for Nicholas Petit-Frere, the Titans offensive tackle was also suspended, but he was suspended for 6 games for placing bets at the team's facility. But at least he did not have the bones, or he actually had the sense not to bet on NFL games. Now, Berry and Rodgers, later on that week, the Colts announced they were released from the team. ESPN reported that an online sportsbook account used by Rodgers placed more than 100 bets, including one wager involving the Colts. Now, back in June, the Colts confirmed in a statement that they were aware of an investigation into an unnamed player and had no further comment, but you now know what the comment was. Now, Rodgers, he says he has taken full responsibility for his actions, and he went on to say the following. Quote, I know I have made mistakes, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to repair the situation. The last thing I ever wanted to do was be a distraction to the Colts organization, my coaches, and my teammates. I've let people down I care about. I made an error in judgment, and I'm going to work hard to make sure that those mistakes are rectified through this process. It's an honor to play in the NFL, and I have never taken that lightly. I am very sorry for all of this. Close quote. I don't know if words can do it. I don't know. I really don't. Because, you know, when I think about these players who I know the league and these teams say to them at some point in time before the season really gets going that you shouldn't do this.
You've got to be joking me.
Because they keep doing it. And I know that when you have these idiots do these things, the brass and the coaches all simultaneously are saying, no! Because they can't believe how stupid this person is being. And I'm sure when Taylor and Berry and Rodgers and even Petit-Frere were known to actually have gambled, I'm sure these thoughts were passed through each of their respective organizations.
Euphoria.
So you join a few of the lines of the couple of commanders along with them in either being suspended for 6 games or the full season and having to reinstate yourself, because obviously you all did not learn from Calvin Ridley's example that you can't bet on NFL games. I don't understand what is the difficulty. I'm sure this was said to you. You cannot bet on games. And you have many examples in and outside your sport that where if you do, you pay the price for it. Calvin Ridley is the most recent football example. You can look at Pete Rose for a baseball one. And I know Pete Rose basically was out for gambling long before you tykes were born, but it's still history. There's still Google. You can read up on it. And for those of you who don't, Rose was a manager for the Reds when he bet on the Reds, and he always would justify and say, I bet on them to win, obviously, but he bet on the team while he had an affiliation with it, where he could actually influence the game one way or the other. That's why the organizations tell you to not bet, especially on your team, because they feel as though you can influence the game, whether you are betting for them to win or to lose. And yes, there's other history for you to study, because Paul Hornig and Alex Karras back in the 60s in the NFL got banned for life for gambling on the game. So if you think the NFL treats it lightly, they don't. And as I said, I'm sure these organizations have told you. I'm sure the Commanders and the Lions and the Colts and the Titans, I'm sure they have said to you, quote, do not bet on games. Don't bet at all if you can, but do not bet on an NFL game because it will stain the reputation of the league. Close quote. And what do? You gamble! Lord. That's why with the three that I mentioned and the fourth that I will mention after this program's over in Demetrius Taylor, you all take this big, juicy, fat grow up.
What?
Mature.
What?
Study.
What?
Man up.
What?
Do whatever is necessary for you to not land in this position again, because you should not have landed in here in the first place. But you young men did, and now you literally have to pay the price. If not bookies. Come on now. You all got to do better than this. Good. We'll step aside again, and when we come back, we'll take a trip down memory lane in a way that might make all of us wince. This is Cole Sportz, and I'll be back right after this.
I want to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life-holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
I want to show that attainability. I want to show the accessibility of this kind of lifestyle.
From social media to having conversations with friends and family, you always have to put on face and say face.
What brings a smile to my face is the one person that totally believes in me, and that's my beautiful wife, Jody.
I just had to stop because I didn't value myself. I didn't love myself. And it's like, I have to learn to love myself.
Changing the world one conversation at a time. This is Revelations.
Coming up on the next installment of Cole Sportz, we're going to touch, of course, on the fallout of the All-Star game and probably the Home Run Derby as well. We'll touch on other things such as possibly the NFL getting ready and getting geared for its training camp season. We, of course, are going to put an email out, put another subject upon further review, or go in on some topic. And, of course, we're going to award the next DOLTS of the week. But that is for next week. But for this week, we take a trip to the VIP zone yet again. And Sick starts us off. No, I'm sorry, not Sick. BS3, the owner, the manipulator, the operator of the BS3 network, Benjamin Suddath. It says, what's up, Cole? How you doing, Ben? Much love to you, brother. Victor says, and now Stupid University presents Dolt of the Week. 6 says from the vault segment. He says, Cole, I was just talking about John McEnroe and Bjorn Borg, respectively. Yeah, to me, that's still, to this day, even though there probably has been in number more intense rivalries, I still say that's the best men's rivalry in tennis that I've ever seen, as Borg and McEnroe. They just were so evenly matched. Ryan says, Dolt of the Week is brought to you by Stupid University. Stupid University, where everyone is left back. 6 says, what is it with these players in gambling? Where were their agents and reps? That too. That's another good question. He also says, Stupid University, where late registration is too early. He also says, break out the Pootie Tang belt scene. Yes, I agree. And I also agree with what Snowman said. You big dummies. Yes, because they are. They are, all 4 of them. 6 says, look, how many state laws did each of these fools violate in their respective states regarding gambling? As if there hasn't been enough tampering in the sports by gambling bookies, legit or otherwise. Thank you. Ryan says, this segment is as epic as Cole's NBA All-Star rant. Gold. Jerry Gold. 6 says, in association with Blowtorch Hot Sauce, the hot sauce that's straight fire. And we'll revisit the VIP zone one last time before we head out. But before we do head out, I have to touch on a subject that I haven't really thought about for a minute. And I have to take a quick trip down memory lane, one that's probably going to hurt a bit, but we have to take it down there anyway. And for it, I'm going to have to, upon further review type of way, go in. So I was watching the Sports Sensates yesterday as I was preparing the grill to put forth some meat on the grill for Independence Day, and Drew Willingham, who is one of the most spectacular content creators out there, he posed a really good question. He says, "What was one of the biggest sports moments that took place on Independence Day?" And of course, I thought about the Lou Gehrig speech. So did he. And yes, rightfully so, that is a big moment. Unfortunately, there was another big moment that took place on Independence Day. And it was when Steve McNair, back in 2009, was involved in a murder-suicide. Yeah. On July 4th, 2009, while Steve McNair slept with one woman, another hinted at his death. And that woman that hinted at his death was Sahel Kazemi, otherwise known as Jenny, who said, quote, "I'm going to have you all soon." Oh, boy. Close quote. Now, the 20-year-old at the time, after she shot and killed McNair, she ended her own life on that day. It's now 14 years later, and it's still shocking when you think about it. And I didn't think about it until earlier this morning when I was like, wow, that's a moment that when it happened on that day, I just was frozen. And I will never forget what I was doing on that day. I was actually running errands. And I was off that day. And I was happy to do so. And was preparing, for the next day because I had to go back to work. And I was in my car. And I remember I turned the ignition off because I was at park. I was ready to get out and go into the house. And I heard the breaking news on sports radio saying that McNair was dead at his lover's house. Now, we all did not know. We all were not aware. We had no clue that McNair lived a double life. Not a clue. But he did. The 4-time Pro Bowler, 2003 co-MVP of the NFL, who spent 11 of the 13 years in the Titans white, navy blue, and sky blue, Columbia blue, who retired and lived in Nashville at the time, settled in quite nicely. He went fishing by day, and then he worked at a restaurant at night, the one that he owned. But he spent long nights down on Broadway in Nashville. And because of it, he got into some extramarital affairs. Now, with the person who killed him, she quickly descended into a increasingly dark place because of promises that McNair gave her. And she was a bartender and a waitress. She was arrested on DUI charges and was concerned about the mounting debt that she was piling up. And because of that, she purchased a weapon. Now, mind you, y'all have heard about John Morant in Tennessee. You don't need to even hold a license to carry. That was the case in 2009. That's the case now, even 2023. So over that summer, McNair's lover's life fell apart. Now, she lived in a place called Hermitage. It's not really a straight up city, but it's a suburb-ish area east of Nashville. It's about maybe 4 or 5 miles away from the airport itself. It's not a bad spot, but it has its places there. And so she was sharing an apartment with somebody, and she was working at a Dave & Buster's at Opry Mills Mall, which is it's near the airport, and it's in a nicer area. A Gaylord's hotel is around there, and Opry Mills is a huge mall. So she met McNair in December of 2008, and she was getting by with a series of missteps and betrayals that was sent to her, and it spiraled her out of control. And I think she didn't realize it until much later. Now, her roommate just moved home to Pennsylvania and left her to cover the full rent of the apartment that she previously shared. So along with not just having feelings for somebody, and it's not really being unrequited, although the dude is lying to her and saying, "I'm gonna leave my wife. You're gonna be the one, baby." McNair was giving her that type of noise. Her life was spiraling out of control. So then she received another financial blow. Now, she was unexpectedly on the hook as well for 2 car payments after she and McNair co-signed on a black 2007 Cadillac Escalade. Now, her previous car, a Kia, that she gave it to a friend who planned to cover the installments, was returned with payments unmade for months. And on top of all of that, she discovered a betrayal from the man she thought she was ready to marry when she found out that he was already married. Now, this all started on the spiraling of the death. Started on the 1st of July when Kazemi found proof that McNair was not being faithful to her in the form of used condoms at the downtown condominium that he co-owned, where they would often meet. She already suspected he was having more than one affair. Now, that was not certainty. There was not doubt. There was certainty. Now, the man that she introduced to her parents, who told her friends that they'd be in the wedding, was not only still married, but he was also seeing other women on the side. Now, her behavior from the 1st of July became more and more erratic. Like, she clocked out of work half hour lunch breaks, but wouldn't return for 2 hours. And then when she got back, she would tell her boss that she needed to leave and went straight home. On the 2nd of July, she was arrested on DUI. On the 3rd, she sent text messages showing that she was unhinged. And then came that fateful day. 12:30 in the morning. McNair was driven. Man, I hate to say this. McNair was driven to a spot. And McNair and Kasemi, they exchanged emails a little more in that morning until about 1:15. So about between 1:15 and 1:30, McNair was dropped off at his condo. And McNair's driver noticed that Kazemi's Escalade was in the parking lot. And he parked behind the vehicle, was paid $140 by McNair for the rides around town. McNair rang Kazemi at around 1:30 in that morning, and it was the last time he used his phone. Now, officers would not arrive on the scene until about 12 hours later. And they discovered his body dead at roughly 1 p.m. on July the 4th. Now, if this isn't a sign of you got to be careful about how you move, where you move, and why you move, I don't know what is. If this is not also a sign of you got to be faithful to your mate, whether it is your wife, whether it's your fiance, whether it's your girlfriend, do so. Because you don't know if you're going to have dalliances elsewhere, how it's going to spiral out of control and how it's going to mess up your life. So let Steve McNair's death be and how he lived his life unto his death be a sign of all of us to do better, be better, and grow stronger from those mistakes. And if you're loving one woman, love only her. And don't give another woman the attention that you're supposed to only give the one woman that you're dating, engaged to, or married to. Because literally, how things are in this world, it can be a life or death situation. Don't do it. Be betrothed to that one woman and wife her up. And respect all the other women in the world. But don't give any of them the same attention you should the woman who deserves it the most in your life. Now, before we take an exit stage left, let's go to the VIP zone one last time. Six says, oh, man, I forgot about that. Yes, rest in peace, Steve McNair. And he also says, look, every man or woman has his or her breaking point. When a person snaps, it's best to stand clear. Never play with someone's heart or emotions. I could not have said that any better, bro. Well said, Sick. I could not agree with that more than I do now. Wonderful advice to go on. And I can't say any more other than that. Thank you for that, Sick. That is 100% on point, brother. If you feel led to donate to this program, all you have to do is go to cash.app/$ host Cole Johnson. That's cash.app/$ host Cole Johnson. Well, that's all the time I have for this episode. Thank you for joining me as we always do it the way we do it here, with class, with dignity, and with intelligence. For all of those intelligent sports fans out there, as well as the VIPs, as well as all of you in the viewing and listening audience, this is Cole Johnson. And this is Cole Sportz.
Thank you for tuning in to Cole Sportz. To download this episode, go to Spreaker and type Cole Sportz with a Z. For apparel, go to Spring and type Cole Sportz VIP Boutique. That's with a Z. To reach Cole Johnson, go to flowcode.com/page/. facebook.com/host Cole Johnson. This has been a Comey Media Incorporated presentation.